Hey guys, Chris here with Work2Game, and today is a big day. Now the live letter gave Brian and I a lot to digest. We'll be working through it. We're trying to get it all to you as we ramp up for Stormblood. But right now, let's go ahead and just focus on Black Mage. First and foremost, the class is not drastically changing. It is still going to be a caster DPS, long range. I think we all didn't expect any major changes there. They're just going to go ahead and tackle some of the pain points. I think some of the other classes sounded like it's got a little more of a pivot. This is really just going through and making the class more playable for that casual player. Now, since Stormblood as a whole is aiming to simplify unused abilities, underutilized abilities, combine things that did the same thing, their example was Stone, Stone 2, Stone 3, all now taking up one slot on your hotbar, making that gap between keyboard players and, controller players a little easier, and just honestly, your newer players, as they level up, it's automatically saying, hey, even when you're doing synced content, don't worry about it, we're optimizing this part for you. But as far as Black Mage goes, since we're still wrecking with fire, recovering with ice, the big question is Enochian. Now previously, Enochian was an ability that I casted, and then it was like this brief window to just go nuts. And if I did my rotation correctly, I could keep resetting the window. So it was constantly do damage, do damage, do damage. Okay, wait, now I need to switch to resetting the timer and then do damage, do damage, do damage. And this made it even weird in that Black Mage was kind of unique because yes, damage was the best stat weight unless you could actually stack enough spell speed that you could get an extra cast in during that rotation reset. So honestly, seeing Enochian change is a good thing. Basically, the big difference is it's now tied to, yes, I can't put it up until I have that Astral Fire or Umbral Ice buff, not a surprise there, but it will stay up as long as I have those. It is on a 30-second cooldown should it fall off, like when combat ends, but otherwise I don't really see you not being in one of these phases. You're constantly either casting fire spells or automatically switching to ice to recover as quickly as possible to get back into fire. The other big thing is sometimes a boss fight felt like literally the mechanic was designed to last the exact amount of time where the boss was off in the water or whatever, nothing for me to target for Enochian to fall off. Now I could actually use Transpose to keep that buff up, and they actually showed an example of keeping Transpose. The mob went down and he just left Enochian up. He just kept transposing just often enough that there really wasn't an issue. This is mostly going to make a difference in like speedruns and then boss mechanics like I just said, but it's just nice to know. I don't ever see needing to keep it up for 2 minutes or however long it was, but the fact that he could, that's pretty awesome. Now, of course, we've already talked about here on the channel that we can now teleport back to ley lines. Honestly, they're just trying to get the maximum DPS time, that burst, that moment that Black Mages are capable of hitting, to be their more consistent target. Fire hasn't really changed, ice hasn't really changed. They did add Blizzard 5. We are gaining Umbral Hearts. We're going to have 3 of those that we're going to learn. And all of this is going to show on this unique job gauge that we'll talk about in a bit. Now, Thunder has undergone a change. So as I just said earlier, like abilities will all share under a single point on the hotbar. You're actually going to have 2 Thunders on your hotbar. Thunder 1 and 3 will be single target. Thunder 2 and 4 will be AoE. I don't know why they're calling them both Thunder. Why don't they just go ahead and add another ability? I think Brian and I both really miss the old naming conventions, the Thunder, Thundara, and all that. And so this really seems like a chance to bring Thundaga back into the game as a naming convention, and then have Thundaga 2. I don't know why they didn't do that, because now it seems like if they want to add Thunder 5, they're going to have to add Thunder 6, and it just doesn't make sense to commit to that. Also, from a balance standpoint, you're going to have these weird patch notes that might mean like, oh, Thunders 2 and 4 received X change. And the gauge, as we start to look into the UI and stuff later, makes the whole class more visual. You're not just watching that Enochian timer and stuff. I might actually get a chance to focus on what bosses look like instead of just, is he gonna kill me right now? And you'll notice at the end of the clip here that he is keeping that Enochian up. Like I was saying, just casting Transpose, anything to do that, you know, as long as maybe a little piece of trash pops up and you can just go ahead and toss something off on it, just a nice little blizzard or something to just go ahead and reset that timer. And as long as Enochian's up, they did start to mention an ability called Foul. It sounds like it's going to be heavily timing based, and basically the longer a fight goes, the more it'll take effect. And what it's going to be is an ability that says, hey, as long as you can truly do your rotation correctly, we're going to give you boosted DPS. So that while we did make 80% of the class accessible to the masses now instead of being one of the more complex rotations to learn, we are still going to give a small way for people who master the class to just hit that next level of DPS. I can't wait to learn a little more about it. I'm afraid to speculate here because they were kind of loose on what they showed, and I would really just rather read the tooltips and get a feel for it. We are going to be in Stormblood so soon. Now, another big change for Stormblood is role abilities. Instead of saying, hey, if you want to be a really good Black Mage, you have to go level X to 15 or 30 or whatever. You're now actually going to get shared abilities based on your role. So ranged casters, your DPS casters, we are all going to have some shared abilities. Swift Cast and Apotheosis, or however you say that, are Black Mage abilities that are now shared with everybody else. In trade, we gained a few things. It sounds like we now have an erase, which allows us to remove debuffs, a nice little utility piece there. And we also gained an ability to transfer 20% of our MP to other players. This is going to be incredibly useful for Black Mages because MP is not something we struggle with. And so as long as I'm about to go into my ice rotation, yeah, sure, I'll toss some MP on a healer. And then that extends our ability to stay in a fight because I'll just recover my MP during my ice phase. We did lose Raging Strikes, we did lose a few others, but it sounds like a lot of the things we lost is because they're consolidating. So before you think something's missing, go ahead and take a look at those role abilities and see if they didn't just take, you know, a little bit of this and a little bit of this and consolidate them into a single ability that we now have under another name. Now you only get to choose 5 of these. And so, you know, for many classes, I think we're going to find that 3 or 4 of them are kind of anchor tenets and you feel like you have to take them. But you might get to where a few of those are a little more scenario based, where, hey, in this fight, this is a little better, or hey, at this gear level, this is going to help you a little better, or this skill level. But you also might find, hey, I have 2 Black Mages in this group. Maybe you focus a little left, I focus a little right. And so I think there's an opportunity there. I don't really know, not having all of them in a clean list with the final numbers, which they said even in the examples, these are not the final DPS numbers. We are still balancing that. So I think let's get a feel for what damage looks like, and as people start to do that theory crafting, we'll know a little more about what the best optimal 5 abilities are for your class. In this case, Black Mage. And honestly, consolidating things under role abilities is going to be a lot easier for new players. It's hard to say, okay, well, you got to go level this to this and this to this, and you got to pull this from here, and the rotation takes these 27 different abilities. So all of this sounds like it's really trying to drop that kind of wealth of knowledge gap between people who've been playing this game since before it was even this game to people who are just hopefully joining us now, which, welcome. We're excited to see the community grow. And the fact that they're getting rid of abilities always kind of concerns me. It's like saying, I'm going to come into your house and I'm going to take 6 things, or maybe 7. And I'm not even entirely going to tell you how many unless you really read the patch notes. And then I want you to go back into your house and I want you to know what's missing. They're actually going to take the previous abilities and they're going to leave them grayed out. So during early access, one of the first things that I'm going to be doing is they're going to be giving us a quest. And that quest is going to be, hey, why don't you take a look at the role abilities? Why don't you take a look at these changes? And so you can go ahead and equip and you can say, oh, here's what's missing. I don't know how this is going to affect people who used macros, but it's a really nice gesture to say, yeah, we made a lot of changes. Let's get you set up first, and then let's get you back into the game and hitting people with big old blasts of fire as soon as possible. Now, with all this simplification, it still does not address how Black Mages play in PvP. And PvP as a whole is just getting remastered entirely. First and foremost, you are getting a separate hotbar, which it was a huge pain point for me to say, yeah, but I have these PvP specific abilities and I have to use those. and I don't have any room for them on my bars. There's other things. I never get up to my full rotation in PvP. I don't live long enough. And so it's nice to see how that's changing. They're going to simplify that. They're going to drop the number of abilities, and they're going to put it in its own world. They're going to start to treat it truly like the separate animal that it is. We're going to see the action point system gone, which, you know, really upped the disparity between people who'd been playing a while and people who are just now getting into PvP. And we're going to have our stats equalized with other ranged DPS, which might help with the fact that we're so squishy. Which, as a side note, means gear is appearance only, so it is basically effectively glamour for everybody. Mentioning UI, the UI overall just looks drastically different. We now have this beautiful little gauge, and as you cast things, you're gonna see that it's gonna go ahead and let you know where you're at in your rotation, what you're doing, and once again, get away from looking at status effects. The size of the gauge will be able to be adjusted, and we may even be getting a simplified version that they said they're working on, just in case you feel like you don't need this, you don't want it, it doesn't match your aesthetic. And most of this is just exciting news. I don't see anything bad for black mages. I think it's going to make the class more accessible. I was looking at jumping to red mage in hopes that it would fit a little more my playstyle. I really liked black mage, but I was looking for a change, and they're making it look pretty cool to stay a black mage. So I hope the other classes are just as exciting. Honestly, not having really mained them, I was just watching and kind of saying, oh, I guess that makes sense. Yeah, that seems logical. But I don't truly have strong feelings on it like I do this. Which brings me to, what do you guys think? We've talked about PvP, we've talked about rotation changes, we've talked about UI changes. What do you think is missing? What do you think they still either haven't talked about or they're not going to change that they should? What do you think that this is going to do for the class? Does it oversimplify it? I think it just makes the class better. I think that it's going to make us more viable in more situations. Definitely let us know in the comments below. We absolutely love sharing and, you know, having this conversation with you guys. Hopefully you guys are really getting to dive into this live letter content. Brian and I will be continuing to try to put out some coverage on it and some breakdowns. I know there's some other good videos already out there on this. It was a lot to take in. It went incredibly long. I didn't expect it to be that much footage, and I think that Stormblood is just going to be incredible. I don't see any other huge information drops coming between now and then, but maybe we'll get even more information. Early access is really, really close. So I hope you guys are having a great day, and look forward to hearing from you. Hit that like button if you'd like to see more videos like this. Hit that subscribe button if you haven't joined us here in the community, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.
Thanks for watching. YouTube has a pretty cool video waiting for you over here. Our latest vlog is down below. For those of you new, subscribe is over here, and all of our other contact info is just right below me here. Thanks for watching.